And we are live. Welcome to the Sales Slap podcast.
To the Sales Slap podcast, where we hit you with the hard truths, bold strategies, and expert insights you need to master the art of selling. And who's leading the charge? Meet your hosts, Rick Denley, Simon Hares, and Scott Donald. Get ready for real talk, expert advice, and game-changing strategies. Because in sales, you don't just play, you slap. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in today to our Sales Slap podcast.
Good morning.
First thing we've got to mention is that one of our co-hosts, Simon Hares, is not here today.
No.
We're missing him. Scott, aren't we today?
We're missing Simon's wit, his big smile. He had some knee surgery, which Brandon knows about. We'll talk about that later. So we are missing Simon, and we're hoping that between the two of us and with Brandon's help, we can fill that void in our hearts and in our minds.
Simon, we're missing you, buddy. I know everybody that views our podcast is as well. Get well soon, and I know you'll be back on the next one. But today we have an exciting guest, and I want to introduce to you Brandon Lee. As a fractional growth and messaging strategist, he works directly with CEOs, founders, and revenue leaders to turn trust, visibility, and reputation into revenue. He doesn't just build content. He has built connective tissue between your brand and the people who need to believe in it. From demand generation strategy to leadership voice development, he helps you shift from cold outreach to warm recognition and grow your pipeline with people who already trust you. He's been involved in some great sounding things like Funnel Amplified, Fist Bump, and Digital Influence Show. Brandon Lee, welcome to the Sales Slap podcast.
Thank you. You missed my big show though, is Mastering Modern Selling.
I missed that one. I'm going to add that in right
so
now.
Tell us about that one, Brandon. Because
Digital Influence Show was years ago, and I stopped it, and then we picked back up about 3 years ago, and we just found out we were rated the #1 social selling podcast on FeedSpot, which is really interesting because I hate the term social selling. I don't like using the term social selling.
However,
but we got there.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're pushing about 150 episodes now. My co-host Tom Burton and Carson Hetty, and we just started having conversations and realized, man, we should probably let other people listen to these. We've been, we come from different backgrounds and different approaches, and
yeah, that's wonderful, Brandon.
Yeah,
I love that. And it's funny because just off air before we jumped on live with all our guests here, we had a quick discussion because you said, hey, I used to use certain platform. Now I'm using this one. And, that's how you get things started. You take action and move forward. We didn't jump on the Sales Slap podcast having perfected it before we launched it. We got it. Sometimes you just got to dive in and go and then polish it as you're moving forward. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, we've changed the name of our show a couple of times. We've changed the format a little bit. Like, you learn and you tweak. And, as I help leaders and teams create their own shows, one of the first things we say is, and I have to say, hey, the first 10 episodes, I really mean the first 20, like just don't evaluate. Like when all that negativity comes in of, hey, this isn't working, and I sucked. I just entertain the thought and go, oh, that's interesting, move it on, but don't let it sit, because you learn really quickly as you go what's working, what's not working. You pivot. And as you guys have talked about before, us coming on, like, this is about having fun. It's about learning. I don't know about you guys. I learn so much from my show. I mean, I find a lot of times with our guests, I'm sitting here writing a bunch of notes. I know it's recorded and I can listen later, but I'm like, oh, that's so good. It's just, we go to networking events, we go to conferences, we go and listen to other people share their wisdom. And now, because we've got this great technology of computers and phones and everything, we can be out there without multi-million-dollar budgets.
Yeah.
Have conversations and get to know people and grow our own reputation, share what we think, share what we live, share what we've learned, and let our community find us as we're out looking for our community.
I want to jump on something that you said there. I was going to ask for permission, then I'm like, no, I'm going to jump right in. Simon's not here. I don't have to ask for permission. The way you described the evolution of your show, when you were chatting, I'm thinking, well, isn't that that's what a lot of sales people go through, right? They start off really, really rough and they focus on their mistakes. And then as we get older and wiser and have more gray hair, which, look at us, is that you realize that you need to go through that process, except for Rick. Rick looks like 30 something, but you realize that those mistakes are part of the growing process. And that's how you get better. And if you get fixated on what you're not doing well and your mistakes and dwell on them, it doesn't allow you to grow and evolve like you were just talking about.
Scott, it's a great point. When I get the opportunity to coach salespeople, sales leaders, and executives, we do a SWOT analysis. I don't focus on the weaknesses. Everybody's, oh my God, I got to improve all my weaknesses. No, you don't. What you need to do is take those mediocre strengths that you have and make them real strengths. You don't go and ask somebody such as Connor McDavid from the Edmonton Oilers, who's a great goal scorer, to improve his defense 100%. No, you say to him, go score more goals. That's what you're good at. Go and do that. And it's constant polishing, and the value that we can bring people through these podcasts is why we're here today. Brandon, we're real excited to have you on. What's new and exciting in your world right now?
Oh man, new and exciting. The best new and exciting thing for me is we are going to be first-time grandparents. I know it's not business related.
That's awesome.
That's the first thing that came to mind. I keep thinking about it. We're about 5 months away, and
nice. Congratulations.
Preparing for that one, and new season, and starting to think through. Spent a lot of time thinking, how do we be good parents? What do our kids need? And now we're like, how do we be good parents to parents? And what do they need? And how do we be good parents and show up for them? And
I love that. Congratulations. I often make reference to and tie together parenting and leadership because they're very similar, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, you're trying to help out other individuals be the best that they can be, often when they probably don't want it or to hear from you. And somehow they have to listen to you, and you have to build credibility with them, which is always more challenging with kids than it is even people that report to you. So it's a great role. And now you're going the next step as well. And you're going to support your kids in their venture of having kids. Congratulations. I love it.
So then, Brandon, does this mean that we're not going to do a dad joke? We're going to do a granddad joke? Is that
no, there's still dad jokes. Can't change the name, dad jokes.
Okay. Well then, but you're going to tell a dad joke with more experience then. So I know that Brandon does this regularly, the dad jokes. And I thought, what a great way to sort of kick this off and set it up. So I've got one, but we'll let Brandon start because he's the master.
We're going there right now. All right, go for it. It's a Friday.
I don't know about master. I enjoy them. I love comedy, and I'm not funny, so I borrow other people's comedy and create it. And puns are witty, and every now and then I can come up with one, but as my family says, I'll say something and they'll go, not your best. I'm like, hey, not all of us are the best, right? The best is the best. So here's my all-time favorite.
Oh, boy.
It's good. It's not great, but it's my favorite. Okay. What is the difference between Iron Man and Aluminum Man?
Iron Man and Aluminum Man. I don't know.
Iron Man stops the criminals and Aluminum Man just foils their plans.
No.
That's good and that's detailed.
Okay, I got one. This made me laugh and I screenshotted it. My wife told me to take the spider out instead of killing him. So we went out, had a few drinks. He's a nice guy. He's a web designer.
Web designer. All right. I was going to, until you added the web designer at the end, it's pretty cool.
Okay. So we have some questions for Brandon.
Wait.
Go.
I'm a dad.
Rick, is no fun Rick bringing a dad joke? Is that what I'm hearing?
Wait a minute. What did you call me? Wow. No fun. Okay. Where's the glove? And this is just for science.
He's gonna.
Okay. All right, Scott. All right. Yeah, it's coming.
Bringing out the boxing mitt is.
But listen, no, I got to tell you though. No, I'm really afraid for the calendar.
Oh no! Why is that?
Its days are numbered.
Oh boy.
Moving on. Let's get into this with Brandon. He's got so much value to bring us. Brandon, one of the things we want to know is how did you come? What was the aha moment?
Oh, exceptionally bad dad jokes and exceptionally. Oh, there's two of them.
Oh, good Lord, he's got a whole. I just use the internet.
We asked him for a book recommendation. He just brought us two.
I thought about that. I could have said it, but let's get to the important stuff.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Let's go. Thank you, guys. All right, we want to know to start with, and our viewers want to know, Brandon, what was the aha moment that that leader-led content? Why is it so critical for an organization from a revenue growth perspective? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it dawned on me, and let me ask a question for everybody out there. If you're in sales, maybe you're even in HR. How often do you try to get your leader, especially C-suite leadership, to join you for important meetings? Right? When we go to trade shows and we're scheduling meetings, and you get the real important one, what do? We go to the CEO. Hey, could you pop in for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Right? Why do we do that? It's because their presence is important. Right? Them being there, it communicates, I care. I took time to come and be here. They communicate the words that they say. It could be the exact same thing that a sales rep says.
Yeah.
But when it comes from a C-suite, it's got more oomph to it. It's got more power to it. It's more credible. It speaks way more than just them showing up.
Right.
And I've seen that for years in my previous companies all the time, and I try to make myself available as much as possible. Oh, could you join me for this? Can you pop in? Whether it was a live meeting or it was a Zoom, could you pop in for a little bit and just say hello and tell them how excited we are to serve them? It wasn't about me. It was more about my title.
Yeah.
Right. And taking our time to do that speaks a lot. Now, as we move into the digital world, what people want to know behind companies is who's behind it. What do they think? We've said this for years, right? It's know, like, and trust. Do people know us? Do they like us? Do they trust us? How do we do that? We do that through ongoing relationship. I believe there was a lot of content. I always say around 2014. It was a little earlier than that, but it moved into this. We do XYZ for 1, 2, 3 companies in order to accomplish ABC. And it was all, focused on business.
Yeah.
We, back, say 10, 15 years ago, it was like, okay, Facebook is personal and LinkedIn is business. Well, business has never been all business, right? Business has never been all about business. There's those stages early in the conversations that are getting to know them. What are they like? Do we like them? Do we feel like we trust them? We go through those stages, then decide, okay, I want to now hear what they have to say. And in the digital world, especially in LinkedIn, we kind of bypass that.
Yeah.
We go straight to, this is what we do. This is who we serve. And I'm not saying it's completely ineffective. I just believe, and I've experienced and see, when the leaders are showing up and they're sharing about not just what the company does, but how do they do things? Who are they? What have they experienced? Where did they come from? Bring people on the journey with you. It lowers a lot of those initial walls of going like this. And here's the example of it is, I was at the airport about a year ago or so now. I just love the story. I got lots of these, but I'm at the airport. I'm flying out of Atlanta, pounding on my laptop, AirPods in, and I get this tap on my shoulder. And I look up and there's a woman. She goes, Brandon. I stand up. I go, hi. No clue who she was. Right? No clue. And she goes, Natalie from LinkedIn. She's actually a really good friend of mine now. But she goes,
one of your 10,000 followers.
Yeah. And I said, oh yeah. And she gives me a hug. She's like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to reach out and talk to you. What happened there? My content and sharing who I am, my journey, the ups, the downs, what's going on, how we're thinking about doing things. It lowered those walls, and she felt like she already knew me so much that in person, it was a big hug and a big smile.
All right, I love this. Let me see. So I want to capsulize a little bit for mine now. So what we're talking about is that know, like, trust, getting to trust sooner. And you're saying we do it through the relationship building. It's not just a credibility building that we do digitally, but also the socialness so that we become, can I go as far as saying a friend?
A human being.
A human being. Yeah. I think, look, I believe what you said is true. I like to become friends with my clients. It's my style. Not everybody's comfortable with that. So I don't love the word relationship. Some people get freaked out, but it's the humanity. It's becoming a human being.
Love this.
When they start to understand like how you think, what you've gone through, how you process things, how you serve customers, it's very different than this is what we do. And these are the outcomes we get. Yes, I get that. But do I want to work with you? There's 20 companies out there that can do the same things you do.
Right.
What is it about you? Because at the end of the day, and we're talking about books. I think it was with Matt. No, you know what? This is
Well, just you mentioned now in the Jolt Effect. Who's that by?
Matt Dixon and Ted McKenna.
Good. Okay.
But I'm actually thinking of David, your fellow Canuck, David Premier, with Sell the Way You Buy.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He referenced some research in there, and it was like 72% of the time, buyers do not make the most logical decision.
Right. Wow.
What does that mean?
That's a big number.
We buy with emotion.
Right. And so but I like them. Like this on paper looked better, but I trust them more. I like them. I know them more. I feel more comfortable with them. Yeah. There's something emotional, and we can't get away from it, right? We want to talk business as logic. It's not. It's emotional, followed by logic.
Right. Listen, we could talk about this for the rest, and I love this. I feel like, so, I've been following Brandon, and I've been on several of his podcasts, and I've always loved this message, because I do believe that this whole idea of humanity, and I hate to call it a brand, but I think people choose to, I've used this term know, like, and trust for a long time. And I think when all other things are equal, people are going to choose the one that the group they feel more comfortable with. But that's not the company, that's the person. People deal with people, they don't deal with companies. So thank you. And I love this notion. So I think that kind of brings us back to the question that Rick asked. If they buy from people, then what a powerful opportunity then for the leaders of companies then to leverage that to say, I'm a person too, I'm a real person, and you can know, like, and trust me, and I become part of the decision process. So you know what? I really trust that leader in that company. And I guess that bolsters your whole perspective why leader-led content is so important in differentiating and building connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah, very important.
And it goes to what we were talking about with, parenting to leadership. We've all heard this expression, right? Do as I say, not as I do. Right? The challenge is they watch our behavior. So when your leaders start showing up, I hate the word authentically. I like the word more, human, more real.
Right.
And they're active on LinkedIn, they're creating content, they're commenting. It gives permission to the rest of the team to do that. And that's the big differentiator. So it's got to start at the top, but then it becomes everybody. Because then when salespeople are doing the same thing, they're creating this type of content, they're becoming known, people feel connected to them, then the cold email goes out, or the cold call goes out, or you're in a booth. And I've seen this so many times, you're in a booth and people walk in, they go, hey. I had a client and he just kept looking at me going, you told me this was going to happen, but I didn't believe you. They just walk in, they're like, hey, you guys are here. And like it shows, people walk down the aisles, like, don't look in the booth.
Oh, yeah.
Make eye contact, right? You make eye contact, they're going to try and sell me something. People walk like this. And you're watching people walk right in the booth because they feel like they know you.
And that's very important. And, in selling and in everything, as I mentioned before we got on our call today, I'd mentioned to you this slide I'm presenting at a keynote next week when I'm talking about it. And it does have the word authenticity on it because it's so important right now. Nobody can hide behind that mask for a long period of time and not be themselves. You'll get exhausted. It's not who you are. And guess what? People just want you to be yourself, whether you're a leader, whether you're a salesperson, and they'll connect with you. That authenticity will flow through. And thank goodness, as Scott said, people buy from people still. Yeah. So get out there with a person and build that relationship yourself. And people will find it. And they'll know whether it's you or not. Like you said, I've been noticed in airports before. It's probably one of my terrific moments. And they go, I saw you speak down in Seattle. I said, yeah, that was a good one, and so on. And they'll feel like they really know me and that we connected, because whether it's on social media, LinkedIn, from stage, be yourself on sales calls.
So I have a question for both of you guys then, as I think about this, and as we're listen, I followed Brandon for a while. We prepared these questions to really lean into Brandon's expertise and passion around this. But as Brandon was describing this, I was thinking about the fact that for me on LinkedIn, I'm really drawn to people who, when they're doing their videos or they're interacting, you can tell it's them. There's no mask. There's no facade. It's just them being 100% unadulterated them. And those are the people that I'm drawn to. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll start with Rick and then go to Brandon. Are you guys the same? Do you find that when you're scrolling LinkedIn and looking for stuff to learn from and looking for things to comment on, that the people that you're drawn to are the ones that you can just tell are completely comfortable in their own skin and being themselves authentically?
Yeah, 100%. It's why we're on this co-hosting, Scott, because you're always your authentic self as well. Remove that clinical type of approach to things that might be, strictly business-like and such. You're still professional, but you're yourself. The greatest advice I got many years ago when I was going through an interviewing process to become a next level executive within a corporation and so on was from the HR person. And after all the interviewing process and things came through, they pulled me aside towards the end and they said, I just want you to be yourself. It's because you switch on this mode and all of a sudden you're a corporate business guy and you go in there and you're polished and you're slick and everything's great. But they said off of that mode, you're a funny individual that you're really fun to be around. And we need more of that. That's the Rick that we need more of.
That's cool.
It was a fundamental shift for me, as we say, that aha moment, to realize that I can be myself and still be a great leader and still have followers through that type of authenticity. So, it's a great point to make. Brandon, what do you want to add to that?
You hit on what's the hardest part. And it's the hardest part, not just in business. I think it's the hardest part in life for us, is to really embrace who we are and be good with it and trust and believe that your community is out there. We have so much pressure, I think now, with all this digital stuff, that everybody's got a framework. They have a plan, a strategy, do this, do that. You get into the personal branding, which is the right term. I hate the term, but it's the right term. For me, it's more about your reputation. And, we use the term your uniqueifier. You are the uniqueifier. And it, as trite as it may sound, there's only one of you in the world. Your experiences, the way you've approached your experiences, what you did with them, what you thought about them, how you felt about them, there's no one else in the world like you. And when you lead with that uniqueness, it's much more attractive than living, as we said, behind the mask or trying to portray a person who you really aren't. I just believe I believe everything runs on energy, right? And when you're living from a mask or you're trying to project somebody who you really aren't, it's felt.
Yep.
And it's, people will go, they may not go, oh, you're not, but they'll go, something's off.
Yep.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And then the trust factor's not there, is it?
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to question number 2, right?
Go ahead, Scott. What do you got?
Well, and I'm reading this because I'm old enough that I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. But the idea that this whole turning trust into revenue. So I think a lot of what we're talking about here is this notion of when you're really being authentic and being true, you build trust. Whether you're a sales rep or you're a leader. So, given that, what are some things that how can leaders action this, and how can they action this and turn it into revenue by building on this reputation and trust piece that you talk about?
Before I answer that, I want to emphasize again what I was just saying for leaders that are listening to this. Leaders have been getting told for years now, you need to put yourself out there. You need to put yourself out there. You need to create content. You need to lead from the front. And guys, it's scary. It's really scary. I remember the first blog article I wrote, and this is back in like 2013. I did the WordPress site and did all that and wrote this article I thought was great. I just sold a couple companies. I had a big ego. I thought I was bringing this great stuff to the world, and wrote the article, created a social post for it, published it. Nothing happened.
Crickets.
And
Sorry.
Well, then it gets worse.
Oh, no.
Later that day, I get an email from a friend. He was an acquaintance. And the subject line was about your blog. Mm-hmm. And he copied the blog pasted in a Word doc, turned on track changes, and edited the whole thing, put it as an attachment. In one line, he said, I figured if you were going to start blogging, you should probably do it correctly. And the paper, it was just red with blood. And yeah, what do you guys think I did?
Right there.
Delete.
Yeah.
I deleted everything and went, oh my gosh, this whole like putting yourself out there, it takes a lot of courage. And what I realized with that, a couple things. One is generally the first people that show up are the haters, the detractors, the ones that are too scared to do it themselves. So they're going to throw rocks at the ones that are taking risk. That happens in everything in life, right? We start going to the gym. Somebody tells you, well, you're not going to last. You've done it before, right? Like, gosh, I'm trying to be motivated. Like, it happens. So the first thing is it takes courage. It takes commitment. And that it's hard. I want to give a lot of empathy to leaders out there that feel this pressure.
Absolutely.
But when we do the work to really get into who you are, it becomes a lot easier. Yep. And what I found, you asked Scott about what are the actions.
Yeah.
This is the way I found the easiest. Well, number one is doing shows is a really easy way to do it because you're just having a chat and you're much more naturally you.
Agreed. Yeah.
Taking your phone and doing a video. I talked to a leader a couple of weekends ago on a Saturday, and he said, oh my gosh, Brandon, he's like, I recorded like 9 different videos over an hour and a half. I deleted all of them and posted none of them.
Yeah, I know.
We're our own worst critics, aren't we?
Sure we are.
And that makes it really challenging. One thing I want to add to that is, again, I'm talking to about 350 leaders next week and from stage. And one of my slides is just this. You mentioned courageous leadership, and it does take courage. And it's not the type of courage that we think where it's, I'm a tough guy and I'm going to be the courageous leader. Courageous leadership now is all about being adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is a huge thing. We have to be empathetic to what's going on there with others.
Vulnerable.
Correctly. And we have to be authentic. So those 3 things are what I see as being the courageous leadership part that you talk about, Brandon.
And that's hard for those that have learned business in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
That wasn't the culture back then.
Oh, and the up and coming generations is totally different. And we have to adapt to them. They're not going to adapt to us. It wasn't like a Scott laughing back in his day. Our leaders back in the day had one style, it was theirs, and we adapted to it.
Right.
We don't have that luxury anymore.
Yeah, we had on Mastermind Selling, I'm just blanking on his name, Dr. I'm going to have to remember it. Give me a sec. But he's coming out with a new book that's called Here Comes the Girls. Now, forget the term girls. I know that could be controversial, but the foundation of it was women tend to lead from a place of empathy. Yeah. Where men have historically have not. And that empathetic leader is more successful now because the culture, the way people are now, and that type of leader is thriving. And he gave this great example, and I still want to give you your actionable item, Scott. I haven't forgotten.
Okay, I'm still here.
Okay, but what he was saying is a male leader tends to. Let's not get out of control here, but they tend to. Somebody comes in and they go, hey, I didn't get this done. This is what happened. It's really frustrating. A male leader tends to go, well, what are you going to do about it? And a female leader would tend to go, oh my gosh, that's frustrating. How are you doing?
Listening. How are you doing with it? I want to know how you're feeling.
Right.
And I think the other part is, how can I help?
Yeah. And then it's, okay, well, what are you going to do to solve this? But it's there. It just comes after the concern for the human first.
Right.
So, Scott, actionable. What I found, there's a strategy component, and that's why I talk about messaging. Messaging is so important, and having a playbook so that we're consistent gives us confidence to keep doing it. But I found these 3 ways of thinking tend to be the easiest way to get started. If you're creating content, first of all, not around what does your company do, but for you is, what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
What are you observing? And this is the hard one. What are you feeling?
Yeah. Yep.
if you write content or do videos or however you want to do content from that, I'm observing this in the industry. And it reminds me of 10 years ago when it shifted this way. And what I see is this. And I think that one of two things is probably going to happen. What do you all think? What have you done in that? Well, you established your leadership. You established a frame of reference or a point of view, and you invited other people into it. What you didn't do is say, I know the right way.
Yeah.
Come and follow me.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you have a playbook for leaders to follow to make it easier for them to be themselves on LinkedIn.
Yeah, yes. I mean, in a nutshell, yes. There's a lot of the community helps a lot because people come in scared, and there's somebody in there like Chris Dunn, who was on my show a couple of days ago.
We've now connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And Chris has been in our community now for a couple of years, and he's always like, "Oh, let me tell you, when I started, I was scared list." And and he starts saying, he's like, baby steps, you get more comfortable, you start finding and then back to the pivot, you find something like, hey, this really is not only working, but it really resonates with me. And you start to embrace it. So success, momentum builds momentum. But then when you have the community to go back to, and we just make it fun. Like, hey, I tried this and it sucked. It just didn't work. We're like, yay.
That's the humility piece too, is that we can fall down. We don't have to be on the white horse all the time, right? In a way, sometimes we fall off of it, and sharing that amongst us is a good thing to do.
I think most people in the world right now are dying on top of their white horse and too scared to admit that they're dying on it.
Yeah. You know what?
So something you said, Brandon, that I want to add on. And you're going to say the word and I'm going to say it. So what I call those is that when you're afraid to make your first post or your first video, I call those oh shit moments. Mm-hmm. I can say shit, right, Rick?
You just did.
That's always the answer.
I held off because it's your show.
Yeah, okay. It's a safe space. Okay.
You're gonna get me banned from LinkedIn for 30
days. But what's interesting about what you're saying, and there's 2 points that I want to build on to what Brandon said, is that one, I feel like as leaders and as professionals, we grow through those oh shit moments, those challenging moments. And if you think back to things 5 or 10 years ago, like at a moment where you thought, I'm in over my head, I'm done, I can't do this. And now you just do it like breathing. I feel like that's what's happened to me on LinkedIn. You talked about your first blog. I remember being so nervous to hit the publish button, right? I was like, and now I make videos and I post and I do podcasts and I don't even think about it. I'm not saying that they're good, but I'm saying that it becomes easier. And I think the other point that I'm making that I think ties into what you said, Brandon, is that when organizations see their leaders leading out front in terms of being authentic, being real, posting, making themselves human, that now gives a green light and permission and creates that culture for the entire organization to realize that this is how we differentiate ourselves and how we become that go-to organization. I think that ties into what you're saying around leader-led content and how it helps turn reputation into revenue.
And can I pause this for a second and highlight how important it is what you just said? And here's the analogy for leaders that are out there thinking, I just don't know about this LinkedIn thing, or we tried it and it didn't work. Here's the analogy. You have the largest trade show conference event of the year for your industry.
Yeah.
How important would it be if, as you walked in with all of your team and everybody kind of scattered because people were going, hey, good to see you. Oh, like you were so known in that event because of all the networking, the communicating, the conversations that were taking place. How important would that be to you?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? LinkedIn is just a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year version of your best conference trade show of the year.
That's a great point.
Because everyone's there. They're not there all the time. I get it. They all wear their badges. You know their name, their company name, their title, and they're all there either talking or listening or at least observing. And if your team are the ones that are out there facilitating these conversations and becoming the glue of it and building that reputation, That's where revenue comes from.
Always strive to have your people and yourself become the industry expert. There's been so many great things that you've been able to share with us here today, Brandon. We're going to look to wrap things up. One of our viewers, Yvonne, mentions a great analogy that we gave with Connor McDavid. You know, you got to go score more goals, and that does take a lot of bravery. We had the opportunity here to talk about the digital world, but how relationships are so important. The thinking, observing, and feeling really resonated with me. And yeah, you know, I got a lot of notes from this, and I know others did too, Brandon. And I think one of the biggest ones.
Can I add one thing to that? I just think it's really important. Sorry to interrupt.
It's
think, observe, and feel. And then this is the one that really helps, I think, people kind of get over the top. What have you lived and what have you learned? And what are you living and what are you learning? So when you take a look at thinking, observe, and feeling, but then looking at your experiences, look at the lens from what have I lived? What have I experienced? What am I learning right now? That it takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with it. And that's what community is good for. You get a lot of ideas, but once you start getting comfortable with that, the style of content starts to flow more, and it's content that people really tend to resonate with.
Brilliant, amazing. Scott, what did you get out of today? 10 seconds or less.
That's not fair. So I feel like a lot of what we've talked about kind of encapsulates why I was drawn to Brandon in the first place. I felt like, you know, he was real. He was passionate. There's a lot of obviously great experience and learning. So, you know, I feel like the reason that I connected with him on LinkedIn and the reason that, you know, he was kind enough to come on our show today is all the things he talked about, right? He is living his message around leader-led content and how important it is for driving revenue. And at the end of the day, anyone who's listening to this now or will listen to it later, all of the stuff about LinkedIn and being authentic and all the things we talk about goes to one thing: driving revenue. So that's what this whole thing is about: driving profitable revenue. Mm-hmm. And we can't avoid, like, LinkedIn is a critical social selling. Social media is an important part of that. So if you're somebody out there who wants to get more comfortable with this and you're not following Brandon, start following him. I double dog dare you.
Brandon, where can people find you and follow you? Where's the best place?
LinkedIn. Go figure.
Simple. Brandon Lee. Let's look him up. Brandon, thank you for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
Great information.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're so glad.
That's fantastic.
I want to remind everybody to consistently strive to remove that mask and be the person that you are. Heck, everybody else is taken. So with that, we want to wrap things up and remind people as well that they can find this and other episodes on all their great podcast type of platforms for listening to on a regular basis. And Scott, who have we got coming up on the next podcast?
On July the 4th, which isn't the big holiday here, but it is in the States. On July the 4th, we're having Martin Lesperance on the show, a fellow Canadian from Montreal will be on our show.
Will it be in French?
Je m'appelle Scott is all I know. So no, it will be in our typical broken English.
But everything is translatable, of course. Brandon, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks to all our viewers that joined us as well. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. This is a Sales Slap podcast.
Be safe.
Going to put us up here. Let's go with the outtake.
Where's the outtake? I don't even know what to do now.
I don't know. I tried to add it and it doesn't like me today.
Well, then guess what? Well, then we'll just wave to everybody.
And there it is. And we're out. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Things don't always go the way they're supposed to.
No, that's
we
true.
Keep forging onwards, don't we? Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.